Meeting this fine, wonderful Florida day, Tuesday, November 14th, 2017. We're going to have a call to order, and our invocation today was supposed to be led by Pastor Don Adcock with Liberty Baptist Church. He's en route to the hospital. One of his church members is in ICU. So I've asked our distinguished resident, Mr. Ed Killebrew, to do the invocation, and the Pledge of Allegiance be led by Commissioner Turner. Would all please stand this morning?
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you as we come into this season of Thanksgiving. I just thank you and praise you for everything that you are, Father. I thank you for the leaders of our community. I pray for them to have wisdom this morning and thought into everything that they do today, God. Father, I thank you for the veterans that have served our country. I pray that you bless them and keep them, Lord God. Father, I thank you for the interested parts that are people that are here today to take part in our government that you so gracefully gave us to be part of. I just ask that you watch over us and guide us through this day. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Killebrew. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Turner. I do want you to keep in your prayers Miss Faith Sparkman. She's not been feeling well lately, and we just want to recognize her today.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
You may, sir.
Quick, just like to take this opportunity this morning for those of the commissioners as well as those in the audience today and other constitutional officers to recognize Amanda Gabriel. Amanda, would you stand, please? She is the new administrative assistant, executive assistant to the county manager. So just want to take the opportunity to welcome her to our first meeting this morning.
Welcome, Amanda. Thank you. We look forward to many, many meetings with you, okay? All right, gentlemen, on your agenda items, your first approval of the minutes of October 10th, October 17th, and the October 24th meetings. Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have proper motion by Commissioner Goddard.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Turner. Any further discussion on the item? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Item number 3, Mr. Suggs, employee of the Quarter Recognition.
Yes, it's Lisa Suarez in the audience this morning.
Yes, I see Lisa.
Oh, come on down, Lisa.
All right, Lisa.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, it's absolutely my honor this morning to do this. As a new county administrator, this is my first opportunity to congratulate our employee of the quarter. And it just so happens that Lisa comes from my background, which is code enforcement, so in the planning division. So
See where you can be at,
congratulations.
Lisa? See?
See, it works out pretty good. But no, I'd like to read something here. It says, Lisa Suarez is the Enforcement Division Manager for the Planning and Development Department. She started with the county in 2003 as a staff assistant. And in 2005, she was promoted to the position of Code Enforcement Officer. And she is also currently in the position after her latest promotion in 2014 as the Division Manager. So just want to take this opportunity this morning to congratulate Lisa. And if you folks will come down, we have a certificate for Lisa as well. And it says, Employee of the Quarter awarded to Lisa Suarez in recognition of exemplary service for the quarter in December 31st, 2017. Awarded this certificate from the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners, given this 14th day of November 2017, signed by the Board of County Commissioners and the County Administrator. Lisa, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well deserved. And Lisa, as a token of the gratification from the Board of County Commissioners, here's a gift certificate as well. Again, congratulations
Thank you.
for being employee of the quarter for Putnam County. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. You do a lot of good work for this county, and we greatly appreciate all you do for us. The next one, item Chief Quinn Romay. You have a special presentation to a lady who's not following you. She'll come, okay.
If I could get everybody who worked in the EOC, Roz, come on up.
Come on, guys, we're gonna go up.
Come on, guys. Everybody who worked in the EOC. I've seen many faces out there. Bob, everybody.
Here in the center.
Come on now.
There, Stacy, everybody. You were there, come on, here, everybody up here. Yeah, everybody. Come on, guys, over here, over here.
Y'all come on there.
I went and distributed tricks one day. That's it. That was it.
You are the center of
That was it.
Should have been at the EOC.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to take this quick moment to recognize Roz. We know her as Roz and Miss Woods. Roz has been working with us at the EOC, and I know in many other county offices for how many years now?
This month makes 4 years.
4 years. You always have these unsung heroes that come out of the woodwork that go the extra mile. And during the storm, things were just clean. And I've been at the EOC in the past, you know, when we're hunkered down and there's trash in the trash cans and cups all over the place. And I think I asked Guy or one of the ladies there, I said, what happened? And they said, well, Roz is here. I said, oh, really? Well, she was coming in many times a day, even when, you know, during the storm, leading up to the storm, after the storm, we never had to call. And I just want to take this brief moment to recognize Roz. Thank you for everything you did to help us. I know you, in a day-to-day atmosphere, you work in many different buildings, but what you did for us during the storm was above and beyond, and we truly appreciate it. And we wanted to recognize you. Thank you, and just to show your appreciation. So.
Okay, this is a certificate of appreciation, and this is awarded to you on behalf of all the Board of County Commissioners for all your hard work. And I have to tell a story, and I probably should be close to the microphone. It was late one evening, I was at EOC, and I said, why don't you go home? She said, well, I'm waiting on everybody else to go home, Roz says, so I can mop the floor and have it clean for tomorrow. So that's the dedication and spirit that you have with it, and we greatly appreciate everything you do. So on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, it's all signed by us, and you have a card. Okay? Thank you so much. All right, now all
Lord, y'all got to get close.
everybody get in. Come on, Quinn, get in. Come on, guys. We might need
All right, we need a big smile. One more.
Always a good way to start.
Roz, I didn't give you an opportunity. You want to say something? No. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again from the bottom of our heart. We appreciate it. Next item of business, Crystal Knighton with Haven Hospice, National Hospice Palliative Care Month Proclamation. Commissioner Goddard.
Okay. This is Putnam County Proclamation Number 2017-81.
You want to go down front and do it? With them or say it? That's okay.
I can do it here. I'll go down there with her.
She's a lot better looking than we are. Good morning, Crystal.
Thank you, sir. All right, down front. Okay, Putnam County Proclamation Number 2017-81, National Hospice Palliative Care Month. Whereas 2017 marks the 50th anniversary of St. Christopher's Hospice in London, widely recognized as the first modern-day hospice organization, and the 35th anniversary of the Medicare hospice benefit in the United States. And whereas the hospice and palliative care philosophy places the needs of the individuals at the center of care, allowing patients and family caregivers to focus on quality of life, surrounded and supported by family and loved ones, despite serious and life-limiting illness. And whereas hospice and palliative care organizations are advocates and educators about the advanced care planning that helps individuals make decisions about the health care they would want to receive should they have serious or life-limiting illnesses, or if they are unable to speak for themselves. And whereas Haven believes that everyone deserves comfort, care, and compassion. In 2016, Haven had the honor and privilege to serve 16,802 individuals and families throughout North Florida. Now, therefore, the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners hereby proclaims November 2017 as National Hospice Palliative Care Month in Putnam County, and encourages citizens to increase their understanding and awareness of options of care at the end of life, and to observe this month with appropriate activities and programs. Done, ordered, and adopted this 14th day of November 2017, Putnam Board of County Commissioners, and I would like to make a motion that this be accepted.
Thank you.
Second.
Proper motion by Commissioner Goddard, proper second by Commissioner Lible. Any further discussion on this proclamation? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Crystal, do you want to say something?
I just want to take a moment just to say thank you to Putnam County and to the citizens for allowing us to do what we do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We
Thank
thank
you for what
Haven.
you do.
Thank you.
Yes,
Great organization.
yes, it is. All right. Mary Thomas with the Children's Home Society of Florida. Mary in the audience today? Good.
She is.
Commissioner Pickens, would you like to go to the podium and read the proclamation? Good morning. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Chairman Harvey.
Sir.
Putnam County Proclamation Number 2017-82, Children's Home Society of Florida, 115 Years of Doing Good. Whereas Children's Home Society of Florida first opened its doors on November 17th, 1902, as an orphanage to provide a safe home to the growing population of abandoned and homeless children in Jacksonville, thus solving an intense societal challenge. And whereas the Children's Home Society of Florida has grown from a team of 2 caring for 24 children in year 1 to a team of nearly 2,000, empowering more than 50,000 children and family members every year. And whereas Children's Home Society of Florida has been the leader in enacting change for children, from driving policy, establishing child labor laws, compulsory education laws, to fiercely advocating for children's rights and foster care, and developing community partnership schools, and turns odds into opportunities for children and families for 115 years. And whereas Children's Home Society of Florida challenges tradition to form strategic partnerships with universities, nonprofits, for-profit entities, healthcare organizations, and others to deliver the right solution to nearly every Florida community at the right time to change entire strategies for generations. And therefore now, the Putnam County Board of Commissioners hereby proclaims November 17th, 2017, at Children's Home Society of Florida Day in Putnam County, and encourages citizens to recognize the good being done by Children's Home Society of Florida to empower more children and families to cross the bridge so they may realize their full potential. Done, ordered, and adopted the 14th day of November, 2017, the Board of County Commissioners. I move we approve this proclamation.
Proper motion by Commissioner Pickens, proper second by Commissioner Turner. Any further discussion on this proclamation? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, the ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you all for your support in the county. Please continue. There's always something going on. We're always out into the homes and out into the community, supporting and working with those families of abused and neglected children. We thank you so much for your support. Just please continue your support.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. All right, before we go to public comment, I would like to make one announcement. Mrs. Beer with USDA and FEMA contacted me yesterday concerning the deadline for filing requests for public assistance has been extended to November 21st. I'm sure we can put this on our website or put it with EOC with the proper information of how to contact. I know the other day my flooded property next door had a note from FEMA in the fence right there. They were still looking to see if I wanted to do something, but it has been extended to November 21st to make any applications. So this will be available on our website and at EOC for you. Okay, no further discussions on that. Public comment portion. This is a time that the agenda is designed to allow citizens an opportunity to bring matters to the board. It's not reasonable to expect that the board will engage in debate or deliberation about matters on which the board has received no prior information as part of the agenda. Please, we ask you to limit your conversation to 3 minutes. We're not going to gong you or get you out of here if you go over a little bit, but we are going to ask you to wrap it up. Public comment cards are the blue cards in the back of the room. You don't have to have one to speak, but if you'd like to fill one out, it'd be good to do that. So right now, I have no blue cards in front of me. So anyone that would like to speak, just please come forward at this time. And state your name, address for the record.
My name is Roxana Regan Weeks, Palaca, Florida.
Good
I'm
morning.
here again to talk about the need for an animal control facility. Our shelter has been closed for 2 weeks to the public because of overcapacity. It is long outdated. It is in a horrendous location. I heard for 4 years that Carl Beck was going to donate land. He did so a year ago. 65 acres out at the jail, all wetlands, not buildable, not really usable. I want to throw an idea out there to you. You need to think outside the box. It's too small-minded, too backwards as far as this issue is concerned. You've been in national news for years. Putnam has a horrific image to people about the care of their animals. And the fact is, there are solutions, but all there's been about it for years is a lot of talk. For people that don't know what you call the spec building, you know, we call it the shell building because that's what it is. It's a concrete prefab walls. It was built, it was sold to a Delaware developer in 2003 with a contract in the county that if he did not sell or lease this property when he was done constructing it, that the county would buy it back for $2.4 million, which they did with BPP funds, that extra penny of sale tax we voted for. And that was in 2006. Since then, this facility, it was taken off the tax rolls because it's a county-owned property, but it sat empty for 11 years. It literally has dirt floors. This is a huge facility at the business park. I don't know why you can't just use that as an animal control facility. It's on a 10-acre property, which is the minimum needed for horse and farm animals. This could be such a outrageous facility for the animals and for the community. This community has been failed repeatedly when it comes to this issue. There was an incident Thursday where there was a drug raid that 9 dogs were seized from that property. And yet we've got a facility that's full. We have that constantly. We have people turning animals out because animal control won't accept them. SAFE is being overloaded here, the local shelter, nonprofit. They've really stepped up in the last couple of weeks and picked up Putnam's slack. But the problem you're not getting is talk is over with. It's been years. Talk. And it's time to actually do something. You were going to sell the Shell building a few months ago for $1.2 million, 50 cents on the dollar of what you paid. If you just used it for the first time in 11 years and did something for the community, you could put a minimal amount of money into this to turn it in, and this would last you 30 or 40 years. It is a huge building. It is what we need. We could offer, community education. That's another issue here. The community needs education. We need training programs. We could do a lot with this. And I just don't understand why it's just nothing but talk. You keep passing the buck, and it's time to actually do something for the safety and the well-being and the image of this community, because if you don't, it's going to keep on being in the news and issues, and it's just got to stop. And I'd like you to think about this seriously. Think outside the box and stop looking backwards.
Thank you, Ms. Weeks.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Just to let you know, we are working. It's not just talk right now. There's a lot of work being done, and I know a couple months ago we pretty much said that to our administration. It's time to move this forward. Commissioner Liebel's been involved for years, and we'd like to see this done very, very fast and get this moving. Our attorney's been working on it, and we should see something coming out very, very soon. So just hold tight on that, and we'll let you know. Anybody else would like to speak to us? Come up. Mr. Hayes, if you'll, Mr. Hayes, get your animals under control, please, sir. They're, good morning. You got it right there.
Thank you. Oh, good morning. Thank you for having me today. I want you to know that what I have to say is important, because not only did my hearing aid go out, my braille card to help me were dropped, so I don't have anything to go by, so I'm going to wing it.
That's okay.
I am here on behalf of the Florida Coordinating Council for the Deaf and the Hard of Hearing. The Florida Coordinating Council for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, which is also, we use FCTDHH, was formed in 2004 under the leadership of Governor Jeb Bush. On this council, there are 17 members that represent different agencies, nonprofit organizations, and aspects of those who have hearing loss. On the council, there are representatives from Department of Children and Families, Department of Elder Affairs, Department of Education, Department of Health. The nonprofits are Hearing Loss Association, Alexander Graham Bell Foundation, Florida Association for the Deaf, and the other aspects are audiologists, hearing aid specialists, a parent of a deaf, blind, or hard of hearing child, and I am on the council as an individual who is deaf blind. Also, each of these individuals represent other areas as well. Many are professional. For example, we have one that is a professor at the University of South Florida and she teaches mental health in their medical school. So I represent not only the council, I am also president of the National Federation of the Blind of Florida, Deaf Blind Division. I also serve for the Florida Deaf Blind Association as the Florida Support Service Providers Program Coordinator. And I also serve on the Florida Building Commission of the Accessibility Advisory Council. And I want to do everything I can to help not only in the state, but in Putnam County as well. A few weeks ago, I sent a copy of a biannual report that the council submits every 2 years to legislators. Each of the council members are reaching out to their elected officials to let them know of concerns and make possible resolutions. The biannual report has several keys. It gives information about education, employment, emergency, and other areas of concern in daily living in everyone's life. So these are mentioned issues, but they also mention resolution, and they have resources that back this and the report along with some links. Within the report that I submitted to the commissioners, there were some documents. One is a talking point where we use to share to the legislative about different aspects of how a positive scenario would be. In other words, you have a person that has an issue. If they're provided with the appropriate, absolute, right fit resources, they're able to do just about anything within their limitations. So these scenarios are positive outlooks for the legislative and the elected officials to go by. Also, we have, there's another document in there. It's a letter that has been submitted to the medical professionals in the state of Florida and concerned of some issues that we have, the public, that come and speak at our public comment, which we meet on a quarterly basis throughout the state of Florida. Some of these concerns were about video relay interpreters, live interpreters, and the concern to need qualified interpreters to help those who are deaf. Another aspect is that on the data, and there's a form in there that the Florida Department of Elder Affairs was able to gather. And it's a by-county data of vision issues, hearing issues, and the combination of vision and hearing issues. In Putnam County, of people over the age of 60, it's a possibility, I think it's 2,900. And for hearing issues, it was 2,100 something. And then for combined vision and hearing loss, it's 315. Now, if we were to apply our population within Putnam to 72,000, which is what it is now, and use the 30% that University of Florida designates of in their chart book that was published in 2011, if we were to apply 30% to the 73,000, that would mean about 22,000 people in our community are disabled. Then, if we were to apply the Center for the Disease Control and the Census Bureau of 20% of the population that are institutionalized, that would be approximately 15,000. The next document that was shared is an email that was sent from the Florida Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf to the Florida Coordinating Council for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. In Manatee County, during Hurricane Irma, They failed to provide qualified interpreters for their deaf community. The deaf community were devastated and hit hard because they didn't know what to do. They didn't have the right communication resources to help them in their respective language. Now, each of the council members have approached different legislators. I have already spoken to the governor's office, and I've also spoken with the local House of Representative, Bobby Payne, and his assistant. His assistant came and sat with me during a meeting in Ponte Vedra Beach last week or the week before to get an idea of what it means to provide accommodation for those who have hearing loss. In that process, they have also made an effort to do what they can to find out how to provide qualified resources within the county. So that being said, I would like to make a suggestion for Putnam County. Not only do we need to, not only do the state, the county, everything need to provide interpreters, we also need text to 911. Since the deaf cannot use just a regular telephone, they use a video relay service. And that video relay service has a delaying feature. It does not put it right away as it would be for us who call on the phone. So text to 911 would be an advantage for them to be able to report any type of emergency. And right now, in the state of Florida, there are about 5 counties that provide that service. And I would like to suggest that Putnam County be a leader in promoting Putnam County restaurants to provide the best qualified resources for our community, because thank God there was nothing really serious that happened with Hurricane Irma, but it can. And we need to be able to reach out to provide the assistance. And one of those suggestions is to create an outreach network communication effort to where we have town meeting to reach out to the community and have them understand that we want to know who they are, where they are, and how we can help them. The Florida Department of Health has a program that's called the Special Needs. We're in a situation of emergency situation. But those are for people that need medical help. For example, someone with oxygen, they need that electricity. A disabled person doesn't necessarily have to have those specific needs. They just have to have a little bit of help to be able to help them to be a participating, productive member of our society. So I hope you would help me and work with me to be able to create a network to promote Putnam County.
Thank you. You did.
Thank you.
You did a
Anybody
great
have
job.
Any questions?
You did a great job winging it, and we appreciate it. Chief Romay, I saw him writing notes during your conversation. Chief Romay, I have her presentation in my hand, so afterward, if you'd like to come up and pick it up. And we thank you for your time today, and we appreciate your input. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. All right, was there anybody else from the audience before we get to the blue card? Before we get to the blue card? Anybody else want to speak to us before we get to the last blue card? Mr. Hayes, you're going to have to control. We're going to
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We're going to recess for 2 minutes. Thank you. It's called back to order.
That's really good. Now, if it doesn't.
Mr. Hayes, I know the sheriff is talking to you.
Then we don't do that.
Mr. Hayes. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Hayes will not be speaking to us. We do not, we love service animals to be in our building. But they do need to know, we need to know what specific service they're providing to us. That's the end of our public comment period. If I see no other hands, then we'll move to,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir, Mr. Turner.
I'm sorry, but I think we need to take this one step further and tell Mr. Hayes if he can't keep his animals under control, he needs to either kennel them or put them somewhere when he comes to one of our meetings.
And I agree, it's dangerous for that to
That
take
was a
place.
very dangerous situation if one of them dogs had got away and jumped on Darlene's service animal. That's just unacceptable in my book.
Thank you. Sheriff, you have a comment?
If I may take
You
just
may,
a point
sir.
of privilege with regard to the comment that Mr. Turner just made, and if I overstep my bounds, I'll apologize, but I just informed Mr. Hayes that this is now the third time that his dogs have been in these chambers and have disrupted the meeting, and I informed him that they would no longer be allowed to come into the facility unless he could show some type of proficiency of training and obedience.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. We have got to keep order and we've got to protect the public safety. There's no doubt. Consent agenda, commissioners. Is there any items you wish to pull?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull B.
Okay. Commissioner Lible, you had?
I don't have any today. Thank
Okay.
you.
B.
B. Commissioner Goddard?
I haven't any.
Okay, and I would like to pull items E and F, just so we can brag a little bit. So Commissioner Turner, you have the floor with item B, page 30 in your budget, your packet, I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this is concerning a bid that was asked for by Public Works, and there were 4 respondents to the bid, and the prices for the bid were, for S1 asphalt, was anywhere from $128, best I could tell, to $494.15. I'm assuming that's per ton. I know it is. So, which is no problem, except for at the end of the recommendation by Public Works, it was asked that we recommend that we allow them to use all 4 of the contractors. I would like to ask Mr. Tompkins if he would come forward, please, and try to explain to me how it's in the best interest of the county to have 4 bids for a contract and then ask that we can use all 4 of them without regards to pricing on the bids.
Good question, thank you. Mr. Tompkins, good morning.
Public Works Director. Commissioner, I share your angst on this. We put this out to bid. We had 4 respondents to the contract. This is a continuing service contract with unit prices. We guaranteed absolutely no amount of work to be done. This was just a unit price contract on certain quantities. The range you saw was because of the categories we had. We had like from 0 to 1,000 tons of asphalt or square yards of asphalt, which is a very small amount, all the way up to 25,000 to 50,000. And when you get out to that range, you'll see the prices drop down significantly. What we, in talking over with our purchasing agent, we had originally talked about we were only going to enter 3 of the bids into the contract. It was suggested that we go ahead and put all 4 respondents under contract. It does lock our asphalt price in for a year with 1 or 2 one-year extensions of that price. The price we got for the amount of asphalt that we normally do is around $85 a ton in place. This is an excellent price for us to have, and it guarantees us price control over the next couple of years. And I agree that there was a large range of prices, but I have no control over what they actually bid on their quantities. I hope that helps understand
Oh,
it.
sir, we're getting there, but I mean, I understand that we want more than one, but if we're gonna bid the thing out, don't you think it would be advantageous to us to if you wanted to use somebody whose price was lower in a certain category, to at least state that if we're gonna use that quantity of asphalt, that makes them low bidder? or if we're gonna use a higher quantity, that would make someone else low bidder. That way I could kind of start understanding. But as far as just saying we're gonna use all four, I mean, I reviewed the bid sheets and did a little computation on my own, a bid computation on my own, and it looked to me like the higher bidder was higher across the board in every category.
They were. I will not dispute that. You're absolutely right. All this does is give us the ability that if we ever had to call them on emergency procedures or whatever, at least we have them under contract. But you're absolutely right. We call this our Chinese menu. We would pick the category of work. Let's say we needed S1 asphalt, 50,000 yards. We would go to the lowest bidder of that category, and that's who we would get to do the work. So it's the advantage to us of getting the lowest price for the type of work we need done.
Mr. Tompkins, I've dealt for many years in private industry with continuing contracts for, in my private job.
Right.
And I don't know that I'm ever aware in all the years that I've done this that they accepted all four bids in a service contract. Usually they accept the low bid. They possibly will enter in with the second guy in line, or person, not necessarily a guy, but the second person in line. And then at that point, I don't know that I've ever heard of just accepting every bid all the way across the board. And I don't see how that in good conscience that we can do that. I can see taking the low one and even setting up a second guy for a backup to the low one. But I think we've got to declare somebody a low bidder in this service contract, don't we?
Well, we do, but like I said, it's certain categories that they bid on. And I agree with you about one contractor was high on all categories that he bid on. As you notice, some of the contractors didn't bid on other categories. I will say in the asphalt industry, it is fairly common to have 3 and 4 asphalt companies under contract at the same time. Most of the counties that we deal with that have this capability, they put all the asphalt plants under contract for a period of time. We can certainly amend that if it's your wish that we could only award the contract to the first 1 or 2 or 3 bidders. That certainly could be done at your prerogative.
If we declare somebody a low bidder, or do you accept 2 or 3 of them like you're talking about, if that turns out to be the case, at what point in time do you bid out your next project and it's just not continuing services? I mean, at some level, is there a threshold in there at some level, like so many thousands of yards that you have to bid out to somebody again? Or do you just get to try and pick one of the 2 or 3 that can get to it? Or, I mean, I'm having trouble understanding how this process is working, because this is quite different than anything I've ever been used to dealing with before on either side of this table I'm sitting on.
Well, what we do at the asphalt contract, let's say XYZ is the low bid for 50,000 yards of S1. Say our project is 50,000 yards. We look at the unit price, who has the lowest bid for 50,000 yards of S1. We will call them up and say, okay, we got 52,000 yards of S1 that need to be put down. You know, we need it put down in the next 2 months. If the contractor says, I'm tied up with I-95 work, I can't do work for 6 months out there, then that does give us the option. And I know it's a little bit higher price, but it does give us the option of going to the next contractor and say, we need this work done in the next 2 to 3 months. We can't wait 6 or 8 months. It does give us some flexibility, but we absolutely look at the lowest price for the category of the work that we are requiring to be done.
Well, don't you think that it would be a big possibility that if you don't declare a winner to a bid, that there would be no reason for anybody to give you a decent price on your asphalt, knowing that they're gonna get hired no matter what numbers they write down on their bid?
No, sir, because all the asphalt companies we deal with understand this type of contract, and they know that we pick the lowest price for the category that we need done. That is across the board. Every one of them is aware of that. We've been using this type of contract for asphalt work for the last 15 years in Northeast Florida. Generally, every county has these type of contracts with asphalt companies to lock in the prices. This does lock in our price for the amount of yardage we need for a 1-year period with, I think, 2 1-year extensions to it. So this is kind of an industry standard that we use for asphalt work. It is not uncommon at all to have 2 or 3 asphalt companies under contract at the same time. It does not guarantee any of them any work. We specifically said that in our contract. Doesn't guarantee any work whatsoever. But when we do need work, then we have the ability of looking at the unit price for the quantity we need and issuing a task order for that work.
Okay, Mr. Tompkins, I'm only 1 out of 5 commissioners by any means, but I would like to have this conversation. In my opinion, I think that we should declare someone a low bidder. And if you want a second person to back it up or something, because in case they're busy or can't get to it or whatever, I could even go that far. But as far as having somebody that's almost 4 times the amount of money on the same S1 asphalt as your low bidder, I just don't see how in good conscience that I can do that.
Well, it's not that we would call them up and say because they're the high bidder. We would go, like I said, we got down in other counties, we have got down to, we had one instance where chip seal was 1 penny difference on the square yardage. So that contractor that was 1 penny lower was called to do the chip seal work we needed done because of that 1 cent difference. So we look at the unit, so the low bid is the lowest bid for that unit price for that work to be done.
I understand.
It's
I mean,
hard
in
to-
private life,
Yeah.
I got a $270,000 job one time for $12.30. So I understand what you're saying, but I also got that job. They didn't say, well, you might get to do it or the other 4 guys that bid on it too, depending on who we decide to use.
We don't decide who, we decide based upon the unit price of the contract. We don't just make an arbitrary that, well, I'm gonna use X, Y, Z. We use whoever has the lowest bid for that particular work item. And that's understood in the industry. That's why we bid this out as a Chinese menu type bid. Because then you'd have to look at each category and say, well, I will award you a bid for S1 asphalt. I'll award you a bid for S2 asphalt. I'll award you a bid for S3 asphalt. So we try to do that as one contract bid with the unit prices established basically for a set quantity. Usually it's 1 square yard or 1 ton or 100 tons or something like that. So that's.
Okay, so what you're telling me is on record, you're going to pick a certain category that they were lowest in, and you're gonna make them the winning bidder in S1, S2, S3, or wherever that lowest category may be. You're gonna make them the winning bidder of that category.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Then you're going to give the 2 or 3 contracts that you're gonna let them on that category in that situation, and then the only way you would use them outside of that category would be is if they couldn't get to it in the required time.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, well, if that's the case, I don't have a problem as long as you declare somebody low bidder.
Yes,
You
sir.
can do it by category, you can do it by tonnage, you can do it whatever, but somebody needs to be low bidder, and somebody needs to clearly win the contract for whatever category. That's my opinion.
Mr. Tompkins, thank you. Are you done, Mr.?
I'm done, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Turner. On Commissioner Turner's questions here, why could you not bring that back to us in the form of, just say, asphalt paving system won the bid on X, Y, and Z, P&S did it on this? Why don't we specify that and then bring that back to us at a later date?
We can certainly do that. I have no objection to it, but I think that is understood in the contract because of the way they bid the job for their unit prices.
You know, it's understood with you and your department, but I would like it cleaned up where where the public knows that if we're buying from Halifax, we're buying the best product they have at that time based on that unit price, and it's listed there. Because I'm with Commissioner Turner, you got 4 here, you could say, well, we're in a pinch and we got to go with preferred materials, even though they're the highest at $400 and something. I mean, that's unacceptable to me.
Oh, I agree.
I think at that point, then we go back out for bid because we can't find, the lowest bidder can't provide what we need them to provide.
We can certainly do it. We can bring this back to you at the next meeting and clean this up. the
Would
way
you
want
like
it
to
done.
pull this item, or do you want us to table this item?
I'll have to,
Commissioners, how do you,
I have a comment. that I would
okay,
like
Commissioner Lible?
to Request. At the transportation workshop, at the end of the month, the last Tuesday, I would like to get an overview of the classifications, and you refer to them as categories,
Right.
on the asphalt. I think that would be very helpful, because there are so many grades.
yes, there is.
And if you could bring that, we did this years ago, and it needs to be done again.
I think you should pull the item and let's bring it to a workshop and have it clarified.
That's fine. I have,
Down, as Commissioner Turner has said, who won the bid for this, and this, and they are the low bidder. And then there's no ambiguity going forward into any of our contracts.
very good. I have no problem doing that.
So
We
you're
can
pulling
bring it
the
back.
item, sir?
Sir,
You're pulling the item?
we can pull the item and
Okay,
bring it
thank
back
you
at
very
the next meeting.
Item B is pulled, and we'll be back to see it at a later date. Thank you very much.
Thank you for working with us, Mr. Tompkins.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And at the end of the month, don't even bother bringing cold in place prices. I never want to see that stuff again.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have the next
That's
one,
it, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
All
I think
right.
I have the next item you wanted to.
Yeah, kind of you do. Okay, item E, page 68 of your agenda, that would be one of mine. This is a success story, and I just want to mention this. We're using a local contractor, and we're piggybacking off the city of Tallahassee. We're keeping it within region.
Yes, sir.
We went out to Texas one time to piggyback, and that caused me a major heartburn. But I like the fact that it was recent. It was a recent purchase. I saw that. It's a regional purchase, and it's a local vendor.
Yes,
And
correct.
that's all I wanted to say about that. I appreciate us narrowing that scope like we need to do. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes,
may
sir. You
also
may.
chime in, I'd like to also tell you how much I appreciate this too. I think that Putnam County should do its very best to spend every dollar it can with local people, people that pay the taxes here and that live here because they want to live here. And I think we should do that. And this is one of those instances where I think we did it legally, we did it the way it's supposed to be, and I commend you for getting that done, Mr. Tompkins.
Thank you, and I wanted, Melissa Dillon worked very hard on this also to pull this together, so it was a team effort on this.
Good, thank you. The next item I wanted to talk about is another success story that doesn't get told a lot, but item F, page 85 through 92. Chief Romay, would you come forward, please? Those of you who don't know, but Chief Romay is constantly searching out deals for Putnam County. And sometimes they're hard to explain to people who oversight us, if you will. And, but I'd like for you to explain the process and what you're doing here for the public to know that we are on top of this, so.
Well, this project is a win-win in many different ways, and I want to get the sheriff and Joe up also because
Come on up,
they're a
gentlemen.
partnership in what we're doing. This particular unit, as y'all know, we've been looking at federal excess property for years. I've been using brush trucks. We can go out and buy a brand new brush truck for $300,000-$400,000, or we can go through the federal excess and get a military excess truck with 1,500 miles on it, automatic transmission in fairly good shape, put a tank in it and we've got less than 50,000-60,000 in the whole unit. So that is the crux of the excess property, and I know the sheriff is doing the same thing. But this particular unit, the sheriff has had a mobile command post for many years. I'll let him talk about that, but it was getting age on it. So as I was going to some of the different excess property yards, I happened to see this trailer. And it's a 53-foot trailer enclosed, got air conditioning and all on it. It had less than 300 and something miles on had a little odometer on the back. We were able to get it through the excess property. It's first come, first served, so you never know where you're at in that process, but it has come together into the partnership with the sheriff's office. GP has donated money to get towards this retrofit. We got a grant through emergency management, and the sheriff is putting money in to finish the truck off. So,
Wonderful. Thank you. Sheriff, would you like to say a few words on?
As Chief Romay said, this is a project that was born out of necessity. We actually have and currently maintain a mobile command center as a piece of equipment at the sheriff's office. The particular mobile command center we have is basically a fifth wheel travel trailer that was retrofitted and purchased back in 2002 or 3, I believe. Not unlike any travel trailer, it comes with its own quirks, and the upkeep on it has just become cumbersome, to say the least. It's showing its age, and the technology and some of the equipment in there is outdated, to say the least, and has reached its end of life. We can't even get parts for some of it anymore. So what we did was, through a series of conversations with Chief Romay and Ryan Simpson with Emergency Management, came up with a plan. And I just want to say that the county as a whole has become very astute at doing less with more. I can personally tell you that we have reached out to some surrounding agencies who have purchased similarly equipped vehicles through vendors in the region. E1 over in Ocala specializes in retrofitting vehicles just like this one. Those, depending on the amount of equipment that they are retrofitted with, typically retail somewhere in the neighborhood of $750,000 up to probably $1.5 to $2 million. So this is just another success story, as you've said, as us doing less with more and being very astute with our tax dollars. All total, after the retrofit, I expect we will have, I don't know what the original acquisition price of this particular trailer was, but we'll have, I dare say, probably less than $60,000 in this entire retrofit. So it's a huge win and a huge success for the county. And not only that, but it combines our resources together so that we will share this resource with emergency services, and we'll get certainly more bang for our buck out of it.
Good. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Yes, Captain.
I think
Thank
it's an interesting point that the
Colonel,
sheriff
I'm sorry, Colonel.
asked me to mention is the retrofitting work on this will be done at Tomoka State Prison at what's called Pride Enterprises. All the work will be done by state inmates for pennies on the dollar of what we would pay anywhere else. Those inmates are then receive that money as form of as a paycheck after their victims' restitution has been paid, all the costs of their prosecution and all costs incurring from their crime have been paid, and then the costs associated with them receiving a trade. So when these inmates come out of prison, they're all certified welders, certified auto painters, whatever the case is, and it gives them an opportunity. So, and that'll be done right down in Daytona for state prisoners, and a good percentage of those prisoners, as you know, at Tomoka are out of Putnam County Justice System. So it's a win-win all the way around.
Also worth mentioning, just to follow up on the comment that Colonel Wells just made, he's exactly correct. Also, any of the equipment that we purchase through Pride is, they extend wholesale plus 10% to us. So we're certainly getting a good deal on all that.
Well, thank you again, and thank you for the partnerships that you created to make this thing happen. And this is a good situation. So, Chief Romay, you have one more comment?
You mentioned the price. Federal excess property works in mysterious ways, I'll put it that way. It's generally 2% of their acquisition costs up to 10%. Having been doing this for quite a while, you get to negotiate, and I want to say we got this for less than $2,000, the trailer,
Wow.
everything, working order, and I really want to say it's $1,500, but I'm not 100% sure of that, somewhere in that range. But like the sheriff and Joe said, we go out on a daily basis, whether they have an incident, we have an incident, could be a fire, could be a law enforcement type type deal where we've got somebody missing, things like that, and you've got to have a place that, A, can talk back and forth to dispatch and have the resources to print maps and, you know, do the communications and coordinate the things going on the scene, and this would give us that.
Well, thank you, and thank you again. And you got a third partner involved, Georgia Pacific, and that's wonderful. So thank you again for all your help on this matter. I just wanted to bring this out to the public that there are wonderful success stories happening right here in Putnam County. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, is there any other comments?
Just
Any-
one quick one, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
A minute ago, not about this one, Chief Quinn. When we were talking to Mr. Tompkins a minute ago, he mentioned that Miss Dillon had also was helping trade local and spend our dollars local, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody heard that we appreciate her working with us too to get that, to get our dollars spent local as much as we possibly can.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay, the consent agenda then consists of items A, C, D, E, F, G, and H. The chair will entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept.
We have a proper motion by Commissioner Goddard,
I'll second it.
proper second by Commissioner Pickens. Any further discussions on A, C, D, E, F, G, and H? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like signs. The aye have it. Thank you very much. Next item on your agenda, on page 120, Ms. Nancy Russo, Stewart Marchman Act, Memorandum of Understanding. Ms. Nancy, if you'll come up, please. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So we had a meeting with law enforcement.
Got to bring that right to your mouth.
We had a meeting with law enforcement and the area receiving facilities, and we all agreed upon the memorandum of understanding between the agencies, and the only signature we need left is yours.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Russo? All right, the chair will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
A proper motion by Commissioner Lible,
And I'll second.
proper second by Commissioner Goddard. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Nancy. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, 10 o'clock certain, and we're at 10:04. That's really good, guys. I'm telling you. We are doing good on this one. Mr. Hammond, I think it's a record almost, isn't it? We're so close. Proposed ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium on simulated gambling businesses. Sir, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, sir.
Planning and Development has had an ongoing problem with this use known as Internet Cafe, becoming a nuisance over the past 6 months particularly. Crackdowns on this type of use by many of the surrounding counties and municipalities has driven these businesses to seek other locations with less stringent requirements and enforcement. Over the past year, the department has found a number of these that open up literally overnight. In the most cases, they fail to check with the department regarding any requirements. They proceed to power machines by running electric cords, alter the electric without proper permitting and inspections, alter the space without proper permits, violate fire codes, and allow seating capacities in excess of the capacity of existing septic systems. All told, these uses are routinely violating a variety of state and county regulations. Codes enforcement officers have ordered the closure of 7, and as a matter of fact, 2 in the last week have been added to that. Locations in the last 6 months. Additionally, the Sheriff Department has had issues with this particular use. Specifically, the ordinance is fairly straightforward. It proposes a 1-year moratorium, 365 days. It took about half the ordinance, I believe, just to try to pin down exactly what we're trying to regulate, which are these gaming or apparently gaming style machines and uses. And specifically, again, what the ordinance is intended to do is establish a 365-day moratorium, which will give us time to begin to, or draft something to adequately regulate this going forward. I do draw your attention to page 2 of the ordinance at the bottom under exceptions. Pursuant to discussions that we had at workshop, we did allow a window for those who were in the process. Specifically, this ordinance shall not apply to any such gambling or simulated gambling business that have been lawfully permitted and lawfully operating on the effective date of this ordinance. Furthermore, such businesses that have submitted complete and sufficient application for all required development orders and/or permits, including all materials required for the development review prior to the effective date of this ordinance, may be permitted no later than 120 days after the effective date of this ordinance. Okay. We think that will at least give anybody who has been working in good faith to get one of these things open a window to comply. Otherwise, they'll have to wait 365 days and until we get another ordinance in place.
And that exception came about at a workshop where the board and planning and development worked hard to craft that language so anybody that was in the system currently had an opportunity to stay in that system and
Yes.
be permitted legally. So we appreciate that, working together on that. Commissioners, are there any comments? This is a public hearing. I will be opening it up for anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor of this application. Okay, is there anybody in the audience wishing to speak in opposition of this application, of this ordinance? All right, hearing none, we'll close our public portion of the meeting and we'll go to the commissioner deliberations. Hearing no deliberations, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, what would be the proper motion here? We have to read it one more time after 5 o'clock, don't we? Or is this actual a passing meeting, or where we at, Brian? Or
No,
Mr.
sir.
Hammond, excuse me.
No, sir, this is a one hearing. You can adopt it today. This is not an amendment to the Land Development Code. This ordinance would not appear in that body of ordinances.
In that case, I move that we adopt this ordinance.
We have proper motion by Commissioner Turner to adopt the ordinance.
And a second?
Proper second by Commissioner Lible. Any further discussion on the ordinance? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it, and the ordinance is adopted. Thank you very
Commissioner.
much.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is any appointments. Board members, are there any appointments that need to be filled today? All right.
I have none.
I have none.
I have none.
Okay. Commissioner Lible? No?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda, Mr. County's Administrator, Mr. Terry Suggs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
You're welcome, sir.
The item that we have under A this morning is a return of funds from constitutional officers. As you're aware, at the last meeting, without it being able to get time to be scheduled on the agenda, we had a wonderful presentation from Sheriff Gator Deloach on some return of funds for fiscal year 16-17, which was an opportunity for us to get here today to share the same information with all our constitutional officers and what they've meant to this commission this fiscal year. You know, we've received close to, let's see, it's about $1.8 million back from the constitutional officers this year. You know, and that is no small feat. When we're sitting here, as we were 2-3 months ago, concerned about where we were with the budget, where we were with the difficult decision the commissioners were having to make on our millage rate and our service fees, you know, for everybody in this community to get together and do all they can do for not only their departments, but for this commission as a whole and for this community and this county as a whole. I think it's an opportunity for us today to share that with everybody and thank them publicly for what it is that they've done. And we're talking every constitutional officer. You know, some budgets are not as large as others, but everybody found something to give back. We go from the Supervisor of Elections office giving back over $12,000 to the clerk of the court giving back nearly $31,000, to the tax collector giving back $332,000, the property appraiser, Mr. Tim Smith, giving back $156,000, and the sheriff giving back almost $1.2 million. You know, when we're faced with the times that we're faced with, and these folks went back to their offices and to their staff and to their department heads, and they did all they could do to give this back, to make us a little more whole than what we were when we ended up 16, 17, I think is extremely important. Our gratification needs to be expressed, and I personally, as a county administrator, want to thank each and every one of our constitutional officers for everything that they do, not only day in and day out, but for what they do for this commission and this county. And I am just grateful to be able to be a part of that and work with such great folks. So that's my presentation on that this morning, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Myers, you are in the audience. I would be remiss not to bring you up if you'd like to come up and say a few words.
Chairman, I would be delighted.
I bet you.
Actually, I was here for two things. Ms. Wood's recognition earlier, and I missed it. She's really an awesome person. And also, I did see this was on the agenda. I appreciate that agenda opportunity. I wanted to share, you have seen an increase in our return of funds. Wanted to share that I have to give all of you credit where credit's due. By freeing us up from taking charge of the BTR, you have allowed that excess capacity now that we have to do the job we're really supposed to do, which is process, of course, real estate taxes. That doesn't change. We still do that. But all of our state functions that we do in our office, which earn money to this office. So unlike some of the constitutional officers, we actually earn every dollar we get. And when we have excess funds, it is required by law to go back to our taxing authorities. And that's a great system. But because you changed the BTR, you allowed us to have more time to process state functions, which brings more money into our coffers, which then allows us to be giving back to the citizens of Putnam County, bringing back money to the table. And that wasn't exclusive. You'll know, too, this is our second year of concealed weapons. We did 12 of them yesterday. So that's a new revenue source, but a combination of a variety of new revenue sources, but also the fact that we are not tying staff up in a system that was actually using money, not bringing money to us. So I just wanted to give everybody accolades on that
And thank
work
you
we did together.
Thank you for all you do for Putnam County. We
Well, you're
appreciate it.
welcome. And we're still getting phone calls. I didn't have to renew my BTR. What does that mean? So there's a lot of excitement out there, and I just have to give you guys a lot of foresight for thinking about that and joining with us and making that change for our businesses. It was the right thing to do, and it's going to be paying dividends for the businesses as well as for us. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership on that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could take one more
Hey,
point of
please.
order to piggyback on the Honorable Ms. Myers' comments. That's exactly what it is that we're trying to do here, is work together as a partnership. And you can see it today with Chief Romay and the Sheriff's Office. You know, and not only are we working with them, but we've got a private-public partnership going in that particular project. We've got a donation, I believe it is from GP. We've got Pride Industries from the Department of Corrections involved. That is exactly the things that we need to be expanding on and doing more of, because that is what's going to make us stronger as a unit, to be able to do those things. You know, working together with the Sheriff's Office and the IT department, you know, commingling some services, you know, trying to make things easier for everybody that works together. And so, you know, those are the things that we need to take pride in. Those are the things that we need to publicize, and those are the things that we need to promote. And I think it's working very well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You still have the floor?
My next item, sir, would be, if I could get Mr. Larry Gass to come up. We want to do an update today, if we could, on where we're at with the debris cleanup from Hurricane Irma.
Mr. Suggs, you might want to bring that microphone a little closer.
We're going to have Larry Gass give us an update to Hurricane Irma debris cleanup.
Good morning, Mr. Gass.
Good morning. I don't know if everybody remembers, but this past holiday weekend marks 2 months since we had Irma, and we are currently at 220,000 cubic yards of brush that has been picked up. We will be starting a final pass in areas that have seen a large amount of debris already removed. We will be starting that on Thursday. We have to start somewhere. It's not that every place in the county is going to be that way, but if everybody gets their debris out by Thursday, it will be picked up. If they have any concerns, I request that they please call the sanitation office so that we would be able to address those. We're still running punch lists that the contractor is looking at to make sure everything's done. C&D has not been addressed yet, but we have some enterprising individuals that are helping us out tremendously. I have seen several trucks going by where the docks and everything have been placed on the roadside, and they are removing the good lumber and placing it into the backs of their trucks. And that's material that we will not have to pay to collect and pay to dispose of. So we do have some enterprising individuals that are helping us out in this project.
That's how we all furnished our first apartment, if you remember.
Unfortunately, you know, last year with Matthew, it took us almost 6 months to get 100,000 cubic yards up. In 2 months, we've gotten 220.
Wow.
But unfortunately, this looks like it may be close to $3 million or more just for the debris pickup. And it's going to be a major impact on this year. And I'll answer any questions that you have about the debris pickup.
So if there's C&D material, they can still put it out in front of their home. And explain what C&D means to the listening public in our audience.
Basically, it would be the construction demolition debris. If the house flooded and they had to pull the drywall out, they had to, a dock destroyed and it floated up on their property. If they take that out to the roadside, place it not with any vegetative debris, but separated by itself, then we will come by and pick it up. That will be probably one of the last things that are picked up, because it's so scattered and far apart that has to go to the landfill. It can't go to one of the brush disposal sites. So they would have to travel quite a few miles to collect a full load and then have to travel that to the landfill for disposal. Because of that, that will be one of the last things picked up, because the way the FEMA payment schedule is, the faster you pick stuff up, the more you get paid. So the things that are going to take a long time, we're not going to put resources on it. We're trying to keep the resources on things that we can get quickly and get the highest reimbursement back from.
Okay. Commissioner Gutter.
Yeah, I just want to, because I've been dealing with Larry a lot here lately, a lot of phone calls.
You mean Mr. Gast?
Mr. Gast, Mr. Gast. And yes, it's been very good. And you know, we had our problems in the very beginning when we didn't have contractors. And because the whole state of Florida was hit. All of a sudden, our contractor backed out. We were going, oh no. And somehow Mr. Gast made this work, and has been excellent. You know, if I had an area that was a safety hazard because too much waste was put out there, I sent him an email and it was taken care of immediately. So I'm impressed with how quickly we did get this done.
Thank you.
And I'm going to give you kudos too. An email came to me from the town of Interlaken requesting debris get picked up pretty quick because roads were going to be paved. Within just a few days, you had that handled, and the road paving started the next week. And they greatly appreciate all the hard work that went into that. Just made common sense to get that out of the way. We didn't want to pave around it, and you went right to work, and we appreciate what you did.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions, comments? Before I let you go, there was an article in the Plaquemine Daily News, for those who didn't see it, bear-proof trash cans today. That has been a long time coming since we had our Bear Summit over at the Ag Center. And people who think that the bears are heavily in the West End, they're not. They're down in the Satsuma area, Vaughn's probably down in that area. So explain really quickly for our listening people about bear-proof trash can. And there's also a weight involved in what they can put in it. So if you'll explain.
We had originally planned to have the meeting to inform the citizens and get them signed up and show them the product a week after the hurricane hit. But because that had happened, we had to postpone that, and now I'm just now getting the opportunity to do it. So tonight at 6 o'clock at the Ag Center, we will be meeting with residents, myself and the Fish and Wildlife personnel, and we're going to discuss the bear-proof cans, bear-resistant cans. These are commercially available trash cans that have been tested, and basically they take it out to the Grizzly Bear Center in Colorado, and they put a likable food source in it, close it up, and put it in a cage with a grizzly bear for an hour. And if the grizzly bear can't get into the can in an hour in a cage, then they consider it a bear-resistant can. There was a grant from the state of Florida which utilized some of the revenue from the bear hunt that occurred a couple of years ago to provide these cans, and we were lucky enough to, when the bids came back, we got, I believe it was 109 of the cans. There will be a fee for the individuals that get the can of $30, but they will own the can. It is their can. If they leave the area, they can take it with them. But this is subsidized by the grant from the Game and Fish Commission.
What was the total cost of, because I know they're not $30. The county's paying part of that. And
It was, I believe, $128 a can.
Okay.
And then we had shipping on top of that, and which, if we got 10 or 100, the shipping price was basically the same.
More importantly, what's the warranty on those cans?
Well,
according to what bear it is, I reckon.
I've been working with the cans also, and I will demonstrate to the people tonight, and we will be having one more meeting for more people after this one. I will be demonstrating how to use an Allen wrench to open the can, because it's got a little round chimney on top. You got to stick your finger down through and then pull a latch to get it. And my hands aren't the best in the world, and some people's, may not have the dexterity to do it. And I found that you can take a simple Allen wrench, turn the short end down, stick it in the chimney, pull the latch, and open it very simply.
We are going to require the citizens to bag their garbage in those cans specifically.
Yes, sir, because our ordinance actually stipulates that there shall be nothing more than 32-gallon cans used. These are 96-gallon cans, and it would be impossible for the garbage men to be able to lift that and dump it into the back of the garbage truck. So we're going to require everybody to sign an understanding that they can utilize them, but they need to bag their garbage so that the collectors can open the lid, just pull the bags out, and then place those back into the truck.
Good. All right. We'll see you at 6 o'clock then.
All right.
Thank you. Mr. Suggs, I didn't mean to take your thunder from you. Still have the floor, sir.
No, sir, that you're just fine, Mr. Chairman. Last item that I have is Mr. Quinn Romay. He's going to discuss the Hurricane Irma disaster relief, state of emergency, and the reimbursement of funds for Hurricane Matthew.
Good deal.
Thank you, Chief.
Come back.
I'm pinch hitting today. Ryan is on vacation. He's some much needed time off with his family. So what I'm going to go through is a couple of different things. What I just handed out is all of the project worksheets that are obligated or in the process of being obligated. And also Ms. Frank, Susan gave us some receipt information, I believe it was Thursday, late last week anyway, on what we have already received, which is the second page. And as you can see, We've received over, let's see, $76,288. Basically what that is are when FEMA does the project worksheets, they categorize them into small projects or large projects. Large projects are any one project that's over 125,000, I believe, this year. So if you look on the front page, you'll see the three debris projects are large projects, and then the Veterans Memorial Park, the 1.8, is a large project. So those are the ones that are in the hopper. Everything has been requested that's out there that we can request. So we're hoping to continue to get payments and receive receipts. And Susan's been working very diligently and I think keeping everybody informed. And I want to thank her for putting up with us, how many times we call and things like that. That is just Matthew. If you have any questions on that, I've got a couple other things.
I have some comments, but I'll wait till you're done.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Does is the $1.8 million after Matthew for Veterans Park, has it been obligated?
No, it's in the process, and we would have to do the work or get the work started to get it into that queue.
Okay, so chances are the 1.8 is probably not gonna show up, chances are.
I would defer to Recreation, or I'm not sure where that project is actually, on the repair.
We can take that up in a workshop sometime, but, I guess my other question, has anybody, about a couple of weeks ago in our last board meeting, we had an update on this same situation. Have we received any checks since that time?
Yes.
It's
Well,
on the
no.
back.
Clerk's saying no,
No.
so,
Since the last meeting update.
okay. So
If-
basically, we're still back in, and we're bogged down again, basically. We're slapping each other on the back because we're bogged down again.
If you, on the second page, the date paid, I believe that's the date we received it. So that would give you a reference. We're continuously talking to the state and trying to keep things moving, but it is the process that the state is
Okay,
working
thank
with
you.
us.
Well, while that was said, let me say this. I want to thank Representative Payne, Senator Perry, Senator Latvala, who I had breakfast with in Tallahassee, and Senator Bradley. Director West Mall, they realized from the Small County Coalition and Florida Association of Counties, fiscally constrained counties, they were trying to push that money out first. Well, we opened a can of worms on the floor of Florida Association of Counties that day, and it turned out to be a really big can of worms. And there's a lot of things moving right now, and this money is trying to get to us as quickly as possible. They are working on expediting this, and it was all based on the fact that this board took an opportunity to see a problem and move that forward. The whole board did, and it gained a lot of traction in a very short period of time. So a lot of people were hopping and jumping, but it got things moving, and without our local delegation, it would not have been moving. And I also want to say Congressman Yoho on the federal level was just astronomical for what he did for us. So, okay.
And I certainly want to echo those comments, because everybody working together in this sense with y'all's leadership, Representative Payne and our delegation and Congressman Yoho certainly helped us get to the point where we're at, and I think opened some doors and to get the process moving, because for whatever reason it was stalled. It was not as efficient as it has been in years past.
If I could, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, please.
Drill down a little bit, and Ms. Wilkinson is in the audience. You might be able to come up and shed some light on this, but the language that I found concerning this request was actually stated unrequested when they listed our Putnam County funds and what was owed. So my question is really simple. Have we officially, on letterhead, requested those funds?
Yes, sir. And it had been requested. There's still a little piece in there that we've asked about. We haven't asked for because there's no project worksheet. We've even on the front end, there's still a little section that says unrequested, and we've asked for that. The state has not been able to explain why that's in there. But yes, everything has been requested officially, not only through many conversations and emails, but also through the official channel over on.
In your opinion, do you think if we would have requested shortly after the Matthew event, we would have received?
No.
I don't either.
No, I think the system was marred with a lot of red tape. And as Ms. Popel and I talked, the comments of, well, that's just how FEMA responds. You know, we were in the White House. That's about the only question we asked Mr. Manning, was when we raised our hand is, where's our FEMA reimbursement? And they got right back to us and said, it's already at the state of Florida next day. I guess it's just a matter of sitting there, waiting. And I don't think unrequested means what we think it means. It was requested, and then you re-requested the unrequested.
We've asked.
Well, you know, that's how all of us were standing there shaking our head going, what is these obligated, non-obligated, unrequested? And it was pointing fingers at people going, did you not do what you're, yeah, we did. And so I believe going forward, I believe the state wants to do better. I know we want to do our project worksheets better. So, you know, but we raised an issue that day that really, wow, it was statewide.
And it needed to be raised, and the conversation has needed to be had. I can tell you, I've been doing this for a very long time, and never have we've had such a convoluted process to get to the point we are today. And I believe you're right, that eyes are open, and hopefully things are going to be updated and changed and all, because we've been working this issue since right after Matthew.
So, Mr. Chair, one
Yes,
more
sir.
question, if I could.
You do, sir.
So is in thought to the fiscal restrained counties, was there any language, Ms. Leota, same thing for you, have y'all gotten anything from the state that would treat us differently? Nothing. We did request that.
There's
correct?
no language being written right now, but there is consideration because pressure was put on by Small County Coalition, by the Florida Association of Counties, by our representative, Payne, by Senator Perry. Senator Bradley got involved to get the fiscally constrained counties money to them first and foremost, because it was an item that they knew we did not have reserves sitting in the bank ready to pay.
Well, it's been talked about then.
Yeah.
That answers my question.
It's been talked about, and like we told them when Commissioner Turner and I were on the floor of FAC, Florida Association of Counties, that we're just praying we don't have another hurricane. How would we find the money for that if we did? So they knew our plight, and they get it for small counties, they get it for fiscally constrained counties. So maybe going in the future there'll be language, but right now it's a priority. So
Procedure change
Yes.
is what's needed.
That's right.
Right. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Mr. Suggs, you still have the floor, sir. I'm sorry.
Well, just, I don't know if Chief mentioned it, but just as a point of information, we have not extended, nor do we intend to extend the state of emergency past last Wednesday. So we are no longer acting under a state of emergency. All policies and procedures are back in force as written and drafted.
Thank you.
Chief, do you have the information to talk about Hurricane Irma and the numbers?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, sir.
The second part of this, I've got two more things. One, finishing up Matthew. We have a mitigation committee, and basically what the committee is made up of municipalities, county departments, and it's a large committee, and that committee meets quarterly to come up with projects on how do we get better. And I say that to say, if we have an area that's flooding, or we have an area that's a problem, all of those different departments and municipalities come together and they come up with what we call the mitigation plan. And FEMA has two portions to that process. There's pre-disaster mitigation, which is a smaller pot of money. But once you get declared, like we did during Matthew and Irma, there's a post-disaster declaration. And I'm happy to say that after Matthew, FEMA and our declaration, our current, what they call a lock-in for mitigation, is a little over $1.7 million. And basically what that does is takes those plans that we already have in place, that have already gone through the state and FEMA, and prioritizes those plans, and we are going to start working on some projects. The two projects that were at the top of the list is the city of Palaca has a lift station upgrade for $236,000, and then the county has Paradise Point wastewater treatment plant for $1.3 million to be funded. And then there's a little extra money, and on the notes I have, Buena Vista wastewater treatment plant certainly has additional $114,000. So that money is to make those places better, whether it's whatever the mitigation procedure that the committee, you know, those engineers, experts came up with, whether it's lifting it, drainage, you know, it could be a myriad of things. But those are the projects that FEMA has brought forward for the.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir, Mr. Lible.
So, on Paradise Point, this would be above and beyond our appropriation we just received from the Water Management District.
Yes.
So, and it's unencumbered. We could use it to really, really expand the service in that Dunn's Creek area. This is good news.
I would
Very
refer
good
to
news.
press if you have some specific questions, but I can tell you that we just got the news on that. Presses and Mike have been working on it.
Press, I do have a couple of questions, if you could come up.
I'm surprised he's not tap dancing back there. That's pretty good news. What would you do with that money, sir?
Yes, sir. I didn't hear your question, I'm sorry.
Okay, so Quinn's saying that his committee, this mitigation inter-county committee, has identified $1.7 million above and beyond a $2 million appropriation we got from Water Management District for the Paradise Point treatment station. And
Right.
So we would be able to spend that?
Yes, sir,
say,
we'd
on
be able
ex-
to run distribution lines. What we got from the district was our backbone system to put in a trunk
Right.
line. This money would now enable us to go to actually do some distribution to pick up all the individual houses out there in the Dunn's Creek area.
That's what I wanted to hear. So we can
Yeah.
eliminate septic tanks
That's
with
what
this
we're
money.
trying to do.
Wow. Good work.
I do want to say something, though. I read an article, because septic tanks get a bad rap in Florida.
Especially in Dunn's Creek.
Yeah, they do. Well, they do, and they deservingly so in that water down there. But I read an article of millions of gallons of sewage was leaked into the waterways in Florida based on municipalities' systems that failed or just couldn't pump. And I don't want the citizens to think that because we put sewer down there, you're going to have to shut that off if it floods that area, correct? Because you can't treat the St. Johns River.
Well, that's true to a certain extent.
Okay.
We generally do wastewater treatment plants, pump stations, and all to the 100-year elevation.
Okay.
Now, during a hurricane, like JEA, they had
Right.
150-some spills is what they call it. When you get that much water and you get your plants underwater and you can't discharge, that's going to happen. I mean, there's no way around it at certain times. We do the best we can about building this to the 100-year flood to present probably 95% of it.
Right.
So, and by having a municipal system, but the same thing, when the water comes up that high, your groundwater's up, your septic tank's not functioning either at all.
Right.
And half the people couldn't even flush their toilets because water had nowhere to go.
That's right.
So at least with this type system, 95% of the time or better, we'll be able to operate a system that will get the waste where it needs to go.
Yeah, that's great news. And we're also going to reduce nitrogen load in the St. Johns River, which is going to be excellent.
But it's true that all the thresholds that you're talking about are based on a 100-year storm.
That is
And
correct.
anything above and beyond that is catastrophic.
That is correct.
Okay.
And I may also, the amount of water we had with Matthew, with Irma and the two nor'easters we had over 3 foot of rain in the county.
Right.
Which is equivalent to a 500-year storm. That was the magnitude of water that we were contending with during these storm events.
You know, and I continue to tell people, June 15th, there was a burn ban on in Putnam County. We weren't going to have fireworks in Interlochen based on the burn ban. Then we started getting a little rain. We lifted the band up. I'm mowing the grass with a lawnmower in front of my dock, and today there's 7 feet of water where I was mowing. That is not heard of. Usually we get a wet winter, wet summer, wet winter, and we gradually come back. The ground is so saturated right now, it's unbelievable.
And it is.
The top of it might be dry, but the bottom,
It's still wet today. I mean, the groundwater is still up. I mean, the tributaries and the rivers and all really now just starting to go down that we can notice it.
and we're still in rubber boots at our place. So.
A lot of people are.
Gentlemen,
Ms. Papel, I'm sorry.
just not to be a wet blanket, but a question for the sake of
Then
transparency.
don't be.
Isn't there a match requirement to the mitigation grants?
Yes, match is it's a 75-25, but if we have the other,
Yeah.
that certainly
So
could get
we'll have to find match money.
I like 50 cents on the dollar and 75 cents on the dollar. I like when somebody else pays part of our bill. I love it. Thank you. So we could use our St. Johns River Water Management grant as a match for
We
that.
certainly can entertain that, yes.
Good.
Mr. Manning, have you reviewed that contract? I hear all these, and see these heads doing this, is that true?
No, I haven't.
Will you please do so?
He will.
I would defer to legal, sir.
I got you.
And one last very positive point, Ryan and Nick worked extremely hard after Irma to facilitate our folks being able to get to FEMA. Not just have to call the 800 number, not have to go online, but there's several different parts of a post-disaster and what we call an IA, Individual Assistance Declaration. And just for reference, the IA is for the general public. If you have damage, you call FEMA, you go online, or you go to what we call a DRC, a Disaster Recovery Center, to sit down and meet with the FEMA folks, SBA, and the different agencies. But with the amount, the number of storms that were had, not only with Harvey in Texas and Florida, the entire state almost getting hit, in Puerto Rico, it was an uphill battle. But Ryan worked 10 times harder than what you ever should have to get us one. He got a DRC. He put different things in place. We actually had FEMA folks sitting at Walmart talking and registering and doing the outreach, if you will. And as a result of that, I've always heard we had 30-something thousand households here in Putnam County. As a reference, one person out of the household can register for FEMA for that structure unless it's a rental. And the number that we have today, which is going to go up based on the extension of the opportunity to register, is just under 14,000 folks have registered and been approved for help. That 14,000 is $5.7 million that has gone directly to help those 14,000 folks. So I think that's a huge success story. Not only, we talk about the things we do with emergency protective measures and fixing this road or doing that, but our homeowners and businesses are the key to everything in a disaster, and the quicker we can get them back up to some normalcy is what our main focus is. So $5.7 million has been obligated for those. So.
Good. Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions?
Thank you, Point.
Mr. Suggs, you still have the floor.
No, sir, Mr. Chair, that's all we have, but I just want to thank staff for their excellent reports, and it just brings more information to the commission and to the public on what it is that we're doing behind the scenes to benefit our citizens. And as you can hear, 14,000 folks took advantage of the opportunity to apply for assistance, $5.7 million. And so those are the things that we need to take the most pride in, is the service that we provide. Thank you.
And since you mentioned your staff, let me say this. Last week I was able to work from home for 2 days. And my wife said, is everything okay at the county level? Because you're not having to be down there all the time. It's wonderful to have you on board. Commissioner Turner on board, and the staff all pulling in the same direction. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. County Attorney, Mr. Stacy Manning, any comment?
Yep. Briefly, I just want to give you all an update on the county's lawsuit against the Palaca Housing Authority. As you know, the county and the Putnam County Solid Waste Disposal District did win a judgment against the Palaca Housing Authority for solid waste disposal fees. And the time period for them to request a rehearing has now expired. We have calculated post-judgment interest and asked staff to go ahead and get that on a new invoice and send that out to the Palaca Housing Authority. And I'm sure they'll be reasonable at this point and going ahead and paying what's due to the county. But I do have to let you know that if it is not forthcoming, then we'll be aggressively pursuing whatever collection avenues that are available to us.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any comments about that? All right, the Honorable Clerk of Court, Mr. Tim Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to have two quick mentions of assistance from our other partners in our county family here. First, on just about every Monday morning, we host a little over 100 folks for jury service. Yesterday, when we came in, our jury application was not operating properly, so we were having to fall back to a manual check-in process, which is terrible. Let me tell you, you don't want to do that. That would actually require us to pull names out of a box like we used to do. But we contacted IT and Bob Stender, and within a half hour they had resolved the issue with that, and then we were able to stall enough to get that operating again and get all our folks checked in and be able to use the system as it's intended to service the courts and to fulfill the needs of the jurors. So I wanted to thank them for that. Secondly, I wanted to thank Sheriff DeLoach. He and I had a meeting last week to look at some opportunities for enhancements to service in the domestic violence arena. And I just want to tell you how accommodating he and Colonel Wells were to me and my thoughts and suggestions, and we're looking forward to partnering to make some improvements to that using technology, which we know in the end allows us to perform more efficient and better service without the additional cost of manpower and other resources. So I wanted to thank him for his gracious hospitality to me in those requests. And other than that, I have no other items. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, Commissioner comments, starting to my right. Commissioner Lible?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to announce a adoption event coming this Saturday from our animal control folks. We will be at 174 County Landfill Road, and we have a zero cost adoption event to deal with our overcrowding right now.
Good news. That's great
yes,
news.
and with that, the general public, we also have our spay and neuter certificates will be available, and they're available to the public. We've got a program going right now where businesses will actually buy these certificates. They look like this, and we award these to the general public, and then you can take your animal and get a free spay or neuter. We have Doc Tony, you've seen his commercials on TV, is obligated to 10 of them, and we have room for others to buy. We have some businesses that are stepping up, and you commissioners, if you would like to buy one of these certificates, I will see you after the meeting. But please come out and spread the word. We'll be on the radio this week, and Brandon, I'd like to see you after the meeting. Possibly we can get it in the paper. But this adoption event hopefully will be successful, and we can lower our overcrowding right now, which a lot of it's storm related. And of course, we've had some law enforcement issues that brought us some additional animals. I don't know what all their dogs or cats, and I know there are a lot of dogs, but anyhow, we're dealing with it. And please support us and this Saturday.
Doc Tony does a lot for this county.
Amazing. The last mega adoption event, he actually spent on Putnam County $10,000.
Wow.
Out of his own pocket for our animals. So we really need to, as a community, step up, get out there this week and get this overcrowding situation remedied.
It'd be nice if we got him here one day and thanked him publicly.
It'd be excellent. He is
For that.
really, he's everything that you hear.
Mr. Suggs, would you follow up on that and see? 'Cause that, yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Okay, staying to my right, Commissioner Goddard.
Well, I want to thank everyone for being here. Not sure how many showed up for the Veterans Parade that we had on Saturday, but that was a great event and the ceremony was great. Also wanted to thank Commissioner Lible. He's actually the only veteran on this board, but wanted to thank you for your service. I also want to I'm just so pleased with our departments. They are all working so well together. Sometimes Putnam County is like a family where we argue. We have a few strange relatives, and but we all love each other. We all love each other, and we just kind of deal with that. But it is so good when I start seeing the departments working so well together, and I just want to commend all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm
sorry.
Lost for words right now, but I know some people in the audience were looking around like, is that me? Commissioner Turner.
Hard to follow through commissioner. All that comedy going on down there. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to talk about a contract that's been brought to my attention that is on the street for bid at the moment from Public Works. It's my understanding, well, it's not my understanding, I saw a copy of it, and it basically says that in order to bid this contract to do repairs, and it's just our small road repairs such as drainage and whatever the small repairs are, you have to be DOT certified. Well, it's my understanding to be DOT certified, you have to have an audit, and that's a minimum of $30,000 a year. I think that it's a travesty that we're not trying to encourage our local contractors to do business with us instead of trying to discourage them from doing so with regulations that don't apply. I understand that if DOT steps up and they're funding a project and they require that project to use DOT certified contractors, that's a different game. But that's not what's going on here. I think that we need to do whatever we can to encourage these people to do it. And at this time, if you'll allow me, I'd like to ask Mr. Tompkins to come up and maybe tell me why we can't take that out of this bid.
Well, I will allow it, and I want to say this, that came to my attention too. I brought it to our county administrator. Him and I sat down also with Mr. Tompkins, and I'm with you. Honestly, putting burdens on our local people to do a job, they can build it to a DOT certified road. They just don't need all that certification hung on them at the cost of doing it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we're not even talking about the roads.
Right,
We're talking about repairs and culverts and, and that sort of thing, the best I could ascertain from reading the bid description.
It's unnecessary. Mr. Tompkins, would you make your way to the podium, please, sir?
Yes, sir. I would be more than glad to answer this question. I think it'd probably be well suited if I could meet with y'all one-on-one and explain it to you. It's very complicated about the DOT certification. It is a financial audit. I've heard prices anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000 to have the audit done, depending upon how well they keep their books. It also is a project qualification. I filled out many a sheet for contractors on projects that they have done for the DOT, stating whether they did them satisfactorily, how they did them within budget. So it's a quality assurance, a quality control program that was initiated by DOT. There is a threshold on it. Under $250,000, you don't need your DOT requirement. This was one of the things we put in our contract, and I hate to say it is due to our West Hillsborough fiasco we went through. And this is one of our quality assurance programs that allow that we have contractors that are capable of doing the projects the way they should be done. We're not trying to exclude anybody from it. 90% of the contractors that I know out there have their DOT certification because the vast majority of them do work for DOT. Or they're subcontractors to contractors that do work for DOT. But it is a quality assurance program, a quality control program that we initiated before I got here. It was actually put in our standard operating procedures for public works work, and we started putting it in our contracts to have a DOT requirement. Most other counties and cities I deal with or know of have that in there as somewhat of a protection. And yes, we do get bonds from contractors to do the work, but those are extremely difficult to call in unless the contractor actually declares bankruptcy and says he can't finish the work. But you have about a 5 to 10% chance of calling in a performance bond to do that. So that's not a huge protection, even though we do have that on every contract. We do get a performance bond. So I would like to just take the opportunity to discuss this at a later date before we bring that issue to the board.
No, I think today's a good date. Mr. Turner brought it up, and let's have a discussion about it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may continue.
Sir.
The bid that we're talking about bids Thursday. It's on the 16th.
Yes,
So
sir.
if we don't, I think if we don't do something about this today and put out an addendum to that bid, that DOT language is taken out that allows local people to bid on our work. We're not talking about DOT stuff that's gonna be required by them to be DOT certified. And I understand that you'd rather use a large contractor with a DOT certification and all. I get all that, but to me, that's not correct because none of our local contractors have gone through the DOT certification process. So I don't think, like I said earlier, I don't think that we should be encouraging, I think we should be encouraging our local people, not discouraging. Also, you said a minute ago, but this was part of an audit item, did you say?
We were contacted by the auditors during the audit procedure. And one of the questions we were asked, and I did send some backup to Mr. Suggs yesterday. One of the auditors asked us, did we have a standard operating procedure? How did we do quality assurance and quality control? We sent that to them, that we did an SOP. We basically mimicked the DOT QA/QC plan, which is a DOT certification. We mimicked that in part of our standard operating procedure, which we did send back to the state auditors.
Well, last week, or I think it was, well, actually a week before last, I believe it was, when I had talked to Administrator Suggs about this, he had mentioned that he thought it might have been an audit item. And so I asked him to give me a copy of every piece of paper that he could find on that audit. And I'm telling you, I read every word of it. I read all the responses from the state, all the responses back to them, and the responses after that. I spent the weekend, every spare moment of that time reading that, and I could not find anywhere in that audit where it said that we had to use DOT certifications on anything that we did, or that I found some things in there, some procurement things that were dinged in the audit, but nothing that had anything to do about roads or road contracts. There were some culvert items and different things that I read, but I couldn't find a single thing in there about it. And also, Mr. Tompkins, I believe, I'm assuming that what you're telling me is that you reported to them that you had been doing this for a period of time, and this was your part of your quality assurance when you did your audit response or whatever you're talking about?
Yes, sir. This was a question asked by the auditors during their audit. They asked us for our plan. We did not have one completely in process. We put one together before I got here. Mr. Nimitz put the SOP together to respond to the auditors. And you're right, it was not an item in the audit per se. It was an item that they asked for information on during their investigation. So I'm assuming by not putting it in the audit, they were satisfied with our response of our standard operating procedure and our QA/QC policy for public works projects.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm willing today, if Mr. Tompkins not willing to bend on this issue and from that bid that's coming out on Thursday, I think that it's a travesty if we don't pay attention to economic development in this county. And I think that we should be doing, as I've said many times before, we should be doing everything in our power to try and encourage local people to do business with the county, and we should also do everything in our power to encourage this county to deal with local people when they can. And so I think this is an instance, and I'm willing to make a motion today. Mr. Chairman, I move.
I have a couple more items.
Okay, please go ahead.
Before your motion, if you don't mind.
No, go right ahead.
Okay. Ms. Tompkins, you brought up West Hillsboro.
Yes, sir.
That had nothing to do with DOT certified road. That had everything to do with the contractor who put the road in the wrong place, okay? Who moved material after the inspections happened, who, when I went out there and took Mr. Leary out there, was totally appalled by the situation.
Right.
It had nothing to do with DOT certification. It had everything to do with sloppy workmanship.
Well,
And you can have anybody that's DOT certified, if they're gonna do that kind of sloppy work, they don't need to do work in the county. That's number one. And number two item, we just last week at the workshop, or 2 weeks ago, talked about getting a lesser requirement on roads for right-of-way. So we could possibly take more roads into the county maintenance system instead of using a 66-foot right-of-way. If we have to have DOT certified people to work on these roads or pay these roads, it just jacks the price up. That's all that's going to do for us. So I wanted to bring out those two comments before we did any motion, because our quality control board, they are in place. The guy just screwed us over, basically, is what he did.
My point being, I was trying to make, the contractor on that was not DOT certified.
Right.
We had to babysit him every step
He
that
wasn't
he
even
did.
a paving contractor. He used a subcontractor.
But that's the point I'm trying to get to you. He's not, but he was the low bid. And we are government. We have to take the low bid. We have, he put his bid bond up like everybody else does. He was the low bid on it. He said he could do the work. He did not have any certification to tell me otherwise. So we awarded him the contract. Okay, this is what we run into. I'm not saying every local contractor is that way. Not at all. We have some good local contractors, but it's like everything else, Mr. Turner. You have your contractor's license. You have your roofing license to go put roofs on. All we're saying is this is part of the cost of doing business like any other contractor that does any type of work, housing, roofing, whatever. All we're saying is this is a protection that we're asking for, that the contractor has the financial ability to do it and the experience to do it. That's what we're asking for. We're not trying to jack the cost up. I mean, I look at this somewhat in a different way. This is, what do we tell to all the other contractors that want to bid county work, that go get their DOT certification? Now we don't have a level playing field, because I'm now bidding against Bubba Joe over here at the backhoe that has no certifications. Yeah, he can get insurance. He's going to be a low bid, but then I've got to go figure out what I can do to keep the project the way it should be done. I mean, there's two sides to this story. Either you have a license or you don't have a license. I mean, you fight this every day in your business, unlicensed contractors doing work.
It's not about the license, it's about the cost of the DOT certification.
It varies.
The comment Mr. Turner said was simply this: if it's a DOT-funded road, no problem with that.
That's correct.
But if it's a local road, why do we not want to have the guy that built the road in the first place not be involved in that situation?
Mr. Chairman, we're not talking about building roads, we're talking about repairs, unless there was something I misunderstood about the contract. It's putting in culverts.
No,
It's
sir. The
repairing
example-
roads here and there, and what?
Example he gave you was a road to be built. And I would like to see this, Mr. Chair, if I could, discussed at the workshop today,
and possibly your motion explored at our 505.
Commissioner Lible, I have no problem with that at all, except for the fact that at a workshop, we can't vote on something.
Well, that's why we'd vote at 505.
And I
We can vote at a workshop. Mr. Manning will
We can break
explain.
out a
Mr.
item.
Manning?
It can be, there's no law against it. It's a policy of not to by this board that can be waived, but the preference is that it be only in extraordinary circumstances that be
Well, we
utilized.
really don't have a written policy. It's just a standard we've done over the years. There's no written policy.
There might be. There might be something from
I could
30
find one
years
date
ago,
back in
40 years ago.
1986. You're right. Never mind. We found those before.
Yeah,
haven't we?
that's right.
Mr. Chair, if I may make a suggestion, maybe if we would, we could do a 30-day delay on this bid. Do we have time to vet this
Well,
out?
I know, I'm gonna say this. I know Commissioner Lible wants to speak, but Commissioner Turner wanted to make a motion. I will let Commissioner Lible speak. If Mr. Turner wants to continue making this motion, we're all commissioners and we're gonna hear each other out. Commissioner
Nothing.
Lible.
All I wanted to add was I have great respect for what you're trying to achieve, but I also have great respect for what his experience has taught him. And I'd like to know more on both the points, if I could.
Mr.
I'm
Lible,
kinda-
I have no problem with what he just said. He said that he would put this bid off, delay this bid for 30 days instead of on Thursday. That gives us the opportunity to workshop it and talk about it, because I think that economic development has to be thought of in there just as hard as what's convenient for public works. Now,
couldn't agree more.
I believe me, I get everything he's saying, and I know what he's trying to accomplish by doing it. But the fallout from it is that he's not allowing local contractors to bid on that work, and that's a damn travesty. I'm sorry.
I agree with you. Let's discuss it.
Okay.
But I don't want to move on it this quick. I want a thorough, comprehensive discussion on the subject.
Okay, well, if Mr. Tompkins will agree to put that off for 30 days, like he just said, then I'm willing to workshop it, Mr. Chairman. That'd be just fine with me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turner. Any other comments, Mr. Turner?
No, sir.
While you have the floor? Okay, Mr. Pickens.
Well, after that, I will say I do agree with Commissioner Turner, and I also see where press is coming, and I think we made the right decision here today to put that off for 30 days. So can we talk about it and put something together that's going to work for everybody? And because I do believe that economic development is very important in Putnam County. I think it is good the way Public Works and the Emergency Services, Melissa Dillon worked with the bidding process through the city of Tallahassee, secure those vehicles and be able to buy them locally. I know it's only 2 vehicles, but that's a start. So I do appreciate that. Also, just want to mention the Veterans Parade. I'm not a veteran myself, but my grandfather was served in World War I, and my dad did a tour in Korea. And I have a great respect. I have a lot of friends that are veterans, and I just want to thank everybody that was involved in putting the parade together and the ceremony, and for Terry Suggs, County Administrator Suggs and his wife Julie for providing their vehicle for us to ride in the parade, and it was a sight to see the 5 of us in the back of that pickup truck, and nobody fell out or hurt themselves getting in and getting out. So I'd just like to make mention and just thank all the veterans. And also I'd like to thank the Georgetown Fruitland Volunteer Fire Department. They provided, and the support staff, they provided a dinner Saturday evening at 4 o'clock for local veterans, and there's probably about 75 people who attended, and probably 25 were veterans from just Desert Storm to the Iraq Wars, Vietnam vets, and actually had a World War II veteran there. He was 91 years old. So it was really interesting to hear their stories about how they were either drafted or enlisted and where they served, and they were just honored that night. So I would just like to thank the Georgetown Fruitland Volunteer Fire Department, and I don't believe we have a meeting, another meeting till after Thanksgiving. Is that correct? So I just wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Pickens. Tonight, I do want to cause you, the board, we have a 2 o'clock workshop meeting today, and we can bring that item up at today's meeting so we can move this thing forward pretty quick. There is a Department of Environmental Protection meeting tonight, Ravine Garden State Park at 5:30 to 7:30. Wait a minute. Yeah, 5:30 to 7:30 to talk about the Marjorie Carr Greenway out there, Marjorie Harris Carr, Cross Florida Greenway. So if you have any comments you'd like to make on that, be in attendance tonight. And a plug for the Interlaken FFA, who is selling their second annual Christmas tree fundraiser. They're driving to North Carolina tomorrow to pick up Fraser firs. And I just so happen to have the form if you want one, but you got to let them know by tomorrow because she leaves early in the morning the next day to go get these trees. So that's all my comments I have. I do want to thank the veterans also who gave us an opportunity to be part of their celebration. It was good to see all the commissioners in the back of Terry's truck. And again, no one got thrown out. That was a good thing. Commissioner Turner did say if he fell out, the rest of us were going with him. So we knew that. But do want to thank you all for a wonderful meeting today. Great dialogue. And if there's nothing further, Chief Romay, you almost got the gaveled.
As he's on his way up, if I could just remind you that we'll be in recess till 5:05.
That's exactly right. I don't get the.
The sheriff and I wanted to come and give you some news and invite everybody, including the public and certainly y'all, to a thing at the fairgrounds at 9 a.m. on Saturday. If you remember Robbie, little Robbie,
Crabtree.
his illness has gotten worse. One request he's had is that he gets to see fire trucks and police cars and all of that. So we're going to accommodate that Saturday. But if y'all are have time, please come by.
We met little Robbie at the EOC when he came out there, and wonderful little fella. So. Sure.
As Chief Romay said, we just want to extend the invitation to each of you. That event will be held at the fairgrounds over in East Palatka at, is it 9 a.m.? 9 a.m. this coming Saturday. So we'd love to see as many of you there as are able to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, we'll stand recess till 5:05. Thank you. All right, we're going to, everybody find their seats. We're going to reconvene our board meeting for Tuesday, November 14th. This is 5:05, and it is exactly 5:05. We have 3 items of business to take care of. The first item of business is ordinance amending Article 7 Land Development Code, number CA 17007, exempting handicap access ramps from required setbacks for certain residential property. Mr. Hammonds, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Commissioners. This is the second reading of this ordinance. As you will recall from the first one, specifically, this fixes a very long-time problem. We have a variety of different churches and veterans groups that routinely come in to get permits for these kinds of ramps. This should help us with this problem by essentially exempting these ramps from the setback requirements in residential or for residential structures in residential zoning districts. This certainly will not exempt them from things like easements and from properties that actually extend over a property line, but it will take care of most of the problems that we have without them having to go to heroic measures trying to get the right slopes and angles for people to get in access to their houses. So that's what this is intended to do, and we think this will take care of it.
Thank you, Mr. Hammonds. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Hammonds? I think this is an excellent opportunity to help those that are less fortunate than us. Is there anybody in the audience you want to speak?
I was just going to say that I'm very glad to see this happen because I've been involved with a lot of the church and the VA that's built these, and that's been a problem. You know, they've had to crisscross over and back around to meet the distance and everything else. So I'm pleased to see this.
Thank you, Commissioner Goddard. Okay. This is public hearing, so we're going to open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, anybody wishing to speak in opposition? All right, seeing none, we're going to close the public portion of our public hearing, and we'll have commissioner deliberations. Commissioners? Hearing no deliberations, the chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept this.
CA 17-007.
CA 17007.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Have a proper second by Commissioner Pickens.
Mr. Chairman, under discussion,
Yes, sir, under discussion,
where
sir.
are we taking this from here? Is this the final reading, so we're going to accept this and, I mean, this is when we're gonna put it on the books right now?
I believe it is.
Not another one?
These two are our second readings, so these, once we pass them tonight, they'll both go into effect. Once they're approved by the state, correct?
They get sent to the state, and once they acknowledge receipt, then they become effective.
Good deal.
So this is basically the last reading.
Last reading.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have a proper motion, proper second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Thank you. Next one, CA 17-003.
This particular code amendment actually came before you back in the summer prior to the hurricane and was delayed by the hurricane. This is its second reading. Its first reading, again, was prior to the hurricane. Code Amendment 17003, an ordinance of the County of Putnam, State of Florida, amending Article 7 of the Putnam County Land Development Code to mitigate development impact on roads, amending requirements for permits for work in or on county right-of-way, and providing for enforcement procedure, amending the use of easements for access to property, and providing for severability and an effective date. Specifically, on the cover sheet, you'll notice under page 1 of the ordinance, if you will, and I'm sorry, I don't have the page number for your ordinance.
145.
Okay. The entire ordinance is what, 4 pages long? And on the first section, development contiguous to right-of-way, essentially what we're asking to do here is modify the language slightly that would specifically allow us to request right-of-way. When people come in to split property and the county needs right-of-way, we have the right to request it under this change. There are a great many private roads out there or roads where the county needs right-of-way in order to pave or maintain that road. And this may be our one and only way of getting it. And essentially, we wouldn't recommend approval of a lot split or a subdivision on such a road unless we had proper right-of-way there.
This would not include our family subdivision thing that we did to help out those people, correct?
No, and again, this is a discretionary issue only when we need it.
If I might jump in, it has to be based upon the actual impact being that the development has created to the road.
Okay. Turner, you had a question?
We had an existing road, for instance, and somebody wanted to go and build a house on a lot that was on the existing road. We're not gonna impact that lot by making them give road right-of-way that may prevent them or turn that lot into an undevelopable piece of property, an unbuildable lot, right?
Not at all. If a lot is there, the lot's there. If it's a legal buildable lot to begin with, it stays that way. This is for like lot splits. If somebody owns property down one of those roads and wants to split it or subdivide it in multiple pieces, it of course has an impact on that road. And we may or may not need some right-of-way in order to, particularly if it's a county road, to maintain something or to bring it up to standard.
This would have helped us in some of those illegal subdivision things, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good.
The second page of that ordinance, section 3 of the ordinance, is mostly just cleanup. This is the idea of making it clear that any construction or even repair of a driveway connection to a county roadway requires a permit. Because we have to look at it to make sure that the culvert's right, that the connection is done correctly. If it's not done correctly, again, it can, through erosion or failure of that culvert, destroy part of the county right-of-way. So again, this is a protection measure. We're just trying to clarify that issue, that not only is it constructing or modifying, you know, or repairing, any of those would require a permit. Then on the top of the page 3 of that ordinance, all public or private utility placement or work within a county right-of-way shall require a permit from Public Works. That's already the case. It just is very specific here. We're making it very specific. Toward the bottom of that page, E, unauthorized or non-compliant construction and or failure to maintain. This is a procedure we've been using in the department to enforce cases or enforce against cases where culverts have failed or somebody's doing something that's messing up county right-of-way. We've been using this process for a number of years. We're just now trying to make sure that it's in code, written out very clearly as to how we're doing it. It involves basically giving them notice, tell them you need to fix this, pull a permit and fix it. Otherwise, we can come in and tear out your culvert to protect our county right-of-way. Can't allow that erosion or failure to affect traffic. The last section, bottom of page 3.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes, sir.
before you move on, you're saying that to be heard by the special magistrate seeking liens. Do we know those costs involved in that before, what the fines will be? 'Cause
Yes. If Public Works had to go out and rip out a culvert to protect our right-of-way, then they would know how much the cost would be.
Oh, so it's not gonna be like a daily fine, it's gonna be a cost if we have to fix something?
This would be a cost. Yes,
Okay.
this would be similar to our abatement liens now.
Okay.
That would be an abatement.
It'd be a hard cost
Yeah.
that we would know. Commissioner Turner?
Yes, under E1,
Yes, sir.
I think it says in here that the county will proceed to remove the non-compliant construction, and the county will open a code enforcement case for any involved contractors to be heard by the special magistrate seeking liens to recover the county's cost. So I think a minute ago, were you talking about a different section where you said that you may, or you?
Well, we can put may.
Ran into this a lot on the planning commission years ago, is that you can put in there that you will, and that means that you have to. You can put in there that you may, and you can if you want to, and so that one word makes all the difference in the world. If there's extenuating circumstances, it ties your hands.
Yeah, we have said will because if they don't fix it, we will take action to protect our right-of-way.
But we could say may, and that's encompassing everything, correct? That does say.
May will work. Again, that'll be discretionary on the part of Public Works as to whether they want to pursue the case or not.
Well, there's no discretion in here. That's the thing that I'm trying to lead to, is that there are situations where somebody says, yeah, I just need a little more time or whatever, and I know that you can do that and all, but this says that you will do it. And that leaves the door closed for any extenuating circumstances. That's like building something in the land code without a special exception. You can't do it.
Well,
no matter if the best use in the world is to do it, you can't do it.
Virtually everything that goes through code enforcement, in code enforcement, we use a lot of discretion, regardless of what it says in the code. We do use discretion in terms of giving people time to comply. That has not been an issue.
Then why can't we change that word to may or can?
We can change it. May won't change the the overall equation, but we can.
I think you should. That way it doesn't tie your hands if you find the opportunity that it's not appropriate to do so.
It's never tied by our hands before, so. And the last section at the bottom of page 3 is essentially something, again, we've been requiring for years. When somebody is using an easement for access to a lot, this comes up frequently in lot splits, where they're creating a 30-foot wide easement to get to property. It's essentially a driveway. We just require that they extend the easement into the property far enough to have a proper turning radius for an ambulance, a fire truck, whatever is necessary, as well as giving us a frontage to measure setbacks from. Okay? And again, that's something we've been doing for years. It just needs to be explicit in code. And that is the total of that ordinance.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hammonds. Any other questions for Mr. Hammonds? To the public hearing, we'll hear from the public now. Any public wishing to speak in favor of this application? All right, seeing none. Any public wishing to speak in opposition of this? We're going to close the public hearing section of this meeting, and we'll go to commissioner deliberations. Commissioners? Seeing no deliberations, the chair will entertain a motion.
Now, this is the final reading because the other one was done earlier.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I move that we accept this final reading and move this ordinance forward with the change on page 3E from will to may.
In both spots.
In both spots, yes.
Are you okay with that?
In both spots, meaning
Department may
Department
proceed-
may proceed to remove.
And then the next line, county may open a codes enforcement.
Furthermore, the county may open a court
Yeah.
enforcement case, any of them. Okay.
All right. We have a proper motion by Commissioner Turner as amended. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Proper second by Commissioner Goddard. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Hammonds. We appreciate you on this. And the next thing is, now we, on our agenda, administrative budget amendment for fiscal year 2016-17 in the amount of $2,416,141. Ms. Popel, I believe this is your item.
Well, it's our item.
Administration.
But I'll speak to it.
Who would you like to go first?
I'm going to defer.
I kind of figured you would defer, so I didn't.
Well, I don't want to,
Your baby, it's got your hands all over
it's
it.
got my hands all over it.
All over it.
This is a budget amendment to the last fiscal year, the fiscal year that's been over for 45 days, about. State statute gives us 60 days after the close of our fiscal year to amend the year that closed, and that's what we're doing here. The statutes require that we amend it in the same manner we passed it, so it has been advertised. We're in a nighttime hearing. By very strict interpretation, we're going to come back and do it again in 2 weeks. There are several lines to the amendment. I spelled them out for you, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about it too.
May I ask you a question before you go any further?
Sure.
I saw the advertisement in the paper, and it was quite larger than the rest of the advertisement. Is that by state
No,
statute?
it was quarter page.
Is that state statute?
Quarter page.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, go right ahead.
I'm just going to speak about the A through F here, in case there are any questions. A had to do with the voter machines that the board passed in May of 2016. At that time, the board's wish was that these machines be paid for by BPP funds and grants, holding the general fund harmless. But part of the grant was going to come in later. So that part went to the general fund so the general fund could get the reimbursement. Since then, the grant came in and it is being used for maintenance instead of acquisition. So this was a transfer from the BPP fund to the general fund for the part the general fund paid for in FY16. And it was initiated by finance. We didn't initiate that. This is just me fixing it. B also came out of FY16. As you may may not recall, we got an audit comment about E911 funds. Since the comment, a lot of research has been done, and all of the reports that went into the state, and the state E911 people, in their opinion, we were fine. We just hadn't moved money from E911 to the general fund to pay, to reimburse the general fund for some of the sheriff's appropriation for E911. So there are two transfers. There's a transfer for FY16, and there's a transfer for this year, and I did budget for a transfer for FY18. So that's B. C has to do with the phone system that you guys approved, I believe, in July of 2017, maybe a little bit before that. There was some question, because we haven't received and installed the phone system yet. There was a question that normally this would have been an FY18 transaction, but we approved the debt itself to begin in FY17. So we're having to amend the books for that. And it's a direct offset. It's an in and out thing. D, we're getting into the hurricane. D, we're recognizing revenue and transferring it to the transportation fund to pay for all of the road repair. E,
Now, we're going to see more of that as this comes in. As
FY18,
reimbursement.
there's an email I sent not an hour ago, because we budgeted $375,000 in contingency in the transportation fund to finish up the road repair. Well,
That's over there.
471, not 375.
Right. So
We'll have to address that at another meeting. Fleet, both had higher subcontractor costs and billed therefore higher. The fleet is an internal service fund. So any of their costs for shipping something out, they bill the departments for. So they have income and cost. Some of that's offsetting. Some of it, they started the year with a negative fund balance because of Hurricane Matthew. Well, because. Anyway, so some of it's to fix fleet's fund balance and some of it's hurricane. And F, as you may recall, a meeting or two ago, you approved the write-off of some bad debt in the Port Authority Fund. And this is just to recognize additional fund balance in the budget to cover the write-off.
But it was really uncollected money we wouldn't be able to collect anyway.
It's rents that we counted as revenue because we had billed for it.
Right.
But we never received it, so we had to write that receivable off. That becomes a cost.
But it's uncollectible. I mean,
Yeah,
the
it's
company went
uncollectible.
bankrupt and there's no way to get.
Yes,
Right, okay.
absolutely. So you've seen all of this before in some form or fashion, just not the budgetary effect of it. This is all housekeeping. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Commissioners, any questions from Ms. Papel?
Just one.
Yes, sir.
Did the bottom line on the budget that we voted on change? Or did all these just shifts inside of the budget?
This is the bottom line of last year's
Last
budget
year's
that
budget.
we're changing. This year's bottom line has not changed.
Yeah.
This is the bottom line of the budget that was passed a year and 2 months ago. Okay,
But this year's budget hasn't been affected by this one. This was last year's budget.
absolutely
And it
correct.
raised last year's budget by this amount?
This raises last year's budget by this amount.
Okay, well, did that impact in any way this year's budget because you took $2 million and added it to the end of last year's budget? That's got to carry over.
No, this will not impact this year's budget.
Okay, so most of this had already been accounted for in this year's budget, is what you're saying?
What I did, I recognized the 76,000 FEMA money that came in. I recognized that. That was unanticipated, uncounted, no impact to this year. I recognized just under 49,000 tax collector money that came in. I recognized the transfer in to the general fund for that BPP money for the voter machines. And I recognized in that money for the 911, and debt proceeds don't count because that's a wash. And used all of that unanticipated revenue plus shifts within the budget to take care of everything that I took care of. So, no harm to this year's budget.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Commissioners, any other questions?
One more question, if I could. So
Yes.
Hey, sir.
you have 60 days to amend FY16,
Yes.
which you have exercised at this point.
Yes.
All right. Will we see this again? You said in 2 weeks, it has to be duly advertised one more time?
I interpret the statutes very strictly, and the statutes say that they don't give me a do this, do this, do this, do this. They say I have to do this in the same manner the budget was passed. My interpretation is advertise, public hearing, advertise, public hearing, just like we passed the budget originally. Some counties only advertise in public hearing once. I'll tell you that. But I've always done it twice because that's how we pass the budget, 2 hearings. But it's going to be the same conversation, no changes, same ad in the newspaper. We're just going through it 2 times.
Okay. Not here, but I want to set an appointment up with you to discuss D and E before the next hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Papel, would it be safe to say, though, what if we got more FEMA reimbursements in?
I can't recognize anything else into the old year because the old year is closed.
Okay, so no matter if it's in that 60-day window, we're
At this
going
point,
forward
any money that comes in will be recognized in the new year.
in the current year that we're under now.
Yes, sir.
Good deal.
Mr. Chairman, a budget is just a plan. I mean,
Right.
It's a strict plan, an important plan, but it's just a plan. If you miss something here and you don't there, it still comes together at the end. It's just a guide, like an outline to what you're gonna do. Very few budgets just exactly add up like they're supposed to when you're projecting them a year ahead, so.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just,
this is strictly housekeeping.
okay, good. All right, the chair will entertain a motion if there's no further comments.
Public
If you'd
hearing.
like the motion to be at this point.
Oh, we
Public
don't need to
hearing.
make
A
a motion.
public hearing,
We just need to know that we read it one time. We don't need a motion, do we?
public comments.
Public comment.
Public comments, sorry about that. Anybody in the public wishing to speak on this item? All right, hearing none, anybody that was in favor of this item? Anybody in opposition of this item? All right, we'll close the public hearing. We really don't need to act on it since we're gonna have a second reading and that's where we'll vote on it.
You need to act.
We need to act today?
What
Yeah.
would you like us to act on, and what would you like a motion stating that
For the resolution that's attached.
we accept the resolution?
How do
Adopt
we do
the,
that, though, if it's the first reading? We just accept it as a first reading?
that's how we pass the budget. We have 2 resolutions and you pass one and then you
Okay,
pass the other.
that's fine. All right, so the chair will entertain a motion about the resolution, the first reading of the resolution.
Can I ask a question first, Mr.
You may, sir.
Chairman? So does that mean if we still have some changes, or if Commissioner Lible meets with you before the next one and wants to make some changes for whatever reason, we can still do that next time around, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we pass resolution 2017, I guess it is.
Gets that.
Okay. We have a proper motion by Commissioner Turner to pass the resolution in the first reading.
I'll second it.
Proper second by Commissioner Pickens. Any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Thank you. Is there any other business to become before this body? Seeing none, this meeting will stand adjourned. Thank you.